I've been fascinated with art and music my entire life. In my adult life, I've been blessed to have met so many immensely talented visual and musical artists. Many from here in my own backyard. Kansas City has an abundant wealth of talented creators of original art. Join me, William Saunders, on a journey to illuminate the hidden architecture of creativity, how artists see, feel, imagine, and realize their inner worlds by engaging in open, exploratory dialogue. By bridging the rational and the intuitive, we aim to inspire fellow creators and curious audiences to appreciate the deeper forces behind visual and musical expression.
Inside the Creative Mind with your host, William Saunders.
Hello there, and welcome to Inside the Creative Mind. And today I am talking with Melissa Dehner, who happens to be, hands down, probably my favorite illustrator and designer in Kansas City. So when I was thinking of people I wanted to invite, for this series, obviously, I had a short list of I've got to reach out to them first because they're at the top of the list of people I wanted to talk to. And you were one of those people. So I'm very delighted to have you on the show. And could you please talk a little bit about Honeybee Creative and then kind of a little bit of background, of yourself and what makes you so awesome?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I did not know you were going to say that. So thank you very much, William. And thanks for having me. So Honeybee Creative officially, like the LLC, came out in 2007, but it really started back in 2003. I was working at a design firm and parted ways and wasn't sure what I was going to do. And I had another colleague who was a freelancer. She said, you need to just freelance. You just need to try that. And I was scared and I wasn't sure because, having been kind of in a bad situation, I was doubting myself, but I did. I jumped into it and it was so obvious once I got doing it. I didn't have any of the issues I had when I was working at the place before, and I was doing my own thing and I had autonomy, things like that. So it worked well. And then, after a few years of that, I wanted to make it official. So in 2007, I became Honeybee Creative. And the reason I picked that name was Melissa means honeybee. And also I'm German. My German background is my family, part of my family. And it's hard worker, and honeybees are hardworking. So that's kind of how that came about. And then, it's basically a design and illustration studio, home studio. And I have gone back to work at full-time places here and there, but mostly I have been doing that since 2003 or 2007 officially. And I do design, I do illustration, I do layout, I do production, I do the billing, I do the invoicing, I do everything. So, but it's been really great. I worked at Linda Hall Library for 5.5 years. And then after COVID happened, it was kind of getting rocky again. And I thought, I know how to do this. I know how to work from home. So I quit and I came back, and I've been doing that since 2021 and have been back with Honeybee. And I have to fill in the gaps. I do dog walking and I did house cleaning for a long time, and I teach art in different areas. But mostly it is I do both because I graduated from KU and I got a degree with both illustration and graphic design. I did a dual BFA. So that's kind of just the basic background, but I've always been in Kansas City. Tried to move away a few times, tried to go to Portland, tried to go to Chicago. None of those interviews worked out. But probably for the best though. My family's here. And I have made so many friends and colleagues and connections, and and now if you have jobs that are remote, it's way easy. So I've had clients now that have been in Michigan, and I've had clients in Florida and California. So it's kind of cool to be based in Kansas City, especially right now because it's really grown since I started all this. So that's kind of the background.
We're kind of a hot spot right now. Before I forget about this, I want to ask this as somebody who's been, and is an entrepreneur. It's sometimes difficult for a very artistic person to handle all those right brain task of the spreadsheets and the invoices and doing all the taxes and everything that else is associated with that. Is that something that is fairly easy for you, or is that something that it was a challenge to try to get, under your belt when you established Honeybee Creative?
Yeah, no, that's good. That's a good question. I suck at math. I'm horrible at it.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm terrible at reading. I thought there was something wrong with me because I didn't like to read books when I was young. And, all my friends were just stuck in books all the time. And I felt like I loved picture books. But finally, in my 30s, I finally figured it out. I'm ADD. I've got all the symptoms of, not being able to retain and all the problems that people have with reading and math and all that. And so it's great because it's also something you embrace as a creative and you go, yeah, that's what
Right.
makes me am. But yes, to answer your question, it is a struggle. But I also have this side of me, and I think it comes from my dad, because my mom's an artist and my dad is creative, but he's more of a business guy. And I'm pretty sure he inherited some of the business stuff from him. He had a chemistry minor and a business major, I believe, and still does a lot of, he reads a lot, actually both my parents do. And so I think I did get a little bit of that, enough to get by. And so the invoicing is actually a little bit fun for me now. And especially once I got over the hump, like when I started, I was in my late 20s when I started freelancing, early 30s. And I was, it was a whole different thing. But now 20 years later, I'm sort of like into that. I like invoicing because it means I get paid. And I like writing contracts. I find that kind of fun. And I sort of have changed. So in the beginning, it was a huge struggle. I just didn't think I wanted to do it. And now I kind of embrace it because it means something different. It means adulting, but it actually is, it also has come to me over the years too, to sort of, I think when you hate something, or when you're struggling with something, it's probably because you don't like it. But if you sort of learn how to like it, you struggle with it less. So I sort of learned how to like and embrace the harder sides of owning and running your own business. There's days and I hate it, and I don't want to math. I don't want to do it. But for the most part, it's gotten better. So I've kind of gone through the gamut of struggling with it.
Cool. So while we met, was you were actually doing music at the time, and
Yep.
I had a music venue, and so here's a shot of
There I am.
Melissa back in the day at Coda, I think this is circa 2015, if I'm
Yeah. I
correct.
think you're right.
You played with a band called Suicide Robins.
Yes.
So my first question with that is, with music, is as somebody who does both, I do both, visual art and do music.
Yeah.
I sometimes find that, I have to, the approach I do for writing a song is very different than the approach I do for creating a piece of artwork. So I have two questions. How was that different for you when you were doing, writing songs a lot? How was that different as far as a creative process for you? Just, generally. And then the second portion of that is, has one inspired the other? Have you ever been working on a song and then have a piece of artwork come out of it, or vice versa? You're working on a piece of artwork and then a song kind of derive from it?
Yeah, I'll answer that first because it's really fun story. The name Suicide Robins came from a painting I did, and I don't have it here. I would hold it up and show you, but I'll have to send that to you. It's actually still not done, but I was working on it years ago. And Dawn, my drummer, yay, Dawn.
Bring it on.
I know. She's great. She's awesome. So she saw it and she said, "Oh, that's cool." And I told her the name of it, the name of the painting. It was Suicide Robin. It's like it's the spring, in the springtime when the robins, I don't know if you noticed, but, and probably other birds do it too, but I noticed the robins, they will fly right in front of your car as you're driving. And it always reminded me of like those kamikaze pilots and suicide pilots and stuff. I don't know. It just popped in my head. So I did a painting and she said, "I like that. That's going to be the name of our band." So that's how that came about. And then, oh shoot, I've lost my train of thought. What was your first, oh,
The process, does it, how, the approach to each, is it radically different? Is there some similar qualities in the kind of the creative process of how you?
um, yeah, when I started this thing, it was not ever supposed to get out of the basement. I mean, we were just jamming. I wasn't planning on playing in front of anyone. I was like, I've never sang. I've never sang and played guitar at the same time. I've never stood up playing guitar. I always just sit and play in my lonely house since I was like 12. I never did any of that. So none of that was intended. But as we played together, we were having fun, and she who Dawn has been out and about in bands forever and knows
Yeah.
everything about it. So we were total opposites, but I liked following her lead, and she said, just, see what you can do. So I got kind of motivated, and I was going through a lot at that point in time. My earring just fell out. I was going through a lot of things back then, and I was sort of like, I was turning 40 and had a breakup, and I was just like, why not? What do I got to lose? So I sat down I was kind of struggling knowing how to write a song. I really never did it before. And I'd done tons of drawings and tons of paintings and tons of projects from start to finish, but I'd never written a song. And I'd watched my brother do it. My brother's a musician, and all my friends, and and I was just like, let's see what I can do. So I literally grabbed a beer, and I went on the back patio with my spiral notebook, and I was like, I need to do this. And I think it took 2 beers. 'Cause I was like, I don't know. But I did. I started to once I treated it as a drawing, or like a project, like a design project, and it had a start, a middle, and an end, and then revisions. Like I had to go back, and I used a pencil. I was like, once I had a pencil, and I could erase words, and I could put other words in, and I could treat it like a sketch. And I was like, I get it. This is okay. And so I wrote Suicide Robin, and then I wrote I only really wrote 3 songs during that whole time. All of our other songs were Dawn songs or covers that we did, or our bass
Right.
player had a song. And so the second song, which is my favorite song I ever wrote, was called 3. And it was about my dog Sage. Sorry, Fresco is sitting behind me, and she understands I loved Sage too. But Sage was my 3-legged dog. And I wrote this whole thing out. And then I realized I need to write this from Sage's point of view, not mine. And so I swapped the point of view to, I'm a 3-legged fur bag, the most badass dog you've ever had. I'll outrun anyone. I don't quit till I am done, and I'll steal your beer and sleep on your floor. So once I did that, it became a process of, like, it was like doing sketches in my sketchbook. I did one version, and then I did a second version, and I chose my version 2 to go with. And then the third song I wrote was more deep. It was a little more like aimed at some people in my past. But again, that also came out of something I did. I had a breakup back in my late 20s, and I started doing my artwork differently after that. I just kind of got messy and quit being, tight ass and all that. And so I kind of did that with that song too. I let it be messy, and I let it be kind of maybe a little bit, like I let my inner jerk come out, stuff. So, to put it lightly. And so it was a lot of art and music, combined. And then one last note on that, no pun intended, or maybe intended. I when I couldn't remember my lyrics most of the time, and I had to put little pictures, and I had to put little, like, there was a song we did called Key that Dawn wrote, and no matter what I did, I couldn't remember, and I had to write instead of the lyric, I had to put like a picture of a house or a picture of this, or and it was very visual. So I'm just very visual in all of it. But yeah, it was super fun time. I really loved that time. I don't know that I want to go back to the late nights, but
Right. Yeah. I don't think I could do that. Even if I wanted to right now.
no,
It'd be
I went to
too
bed at like
crazy.
9:30 last night. I don't think.
Ooh, I wish I would have. I should have. That's really interesting. I've never heard of that before, of using pictures for lyric representation. But the way my brain works, I mean, Heather would, would say, there's been times where, she's counting on me to remember the lyrics because they're my songs, and
Yeah.
I'm like,
Uh-uh. I couldn't do it.
she's like looking at me like, what in the world, boy? Can't you
It's
remember your own shit? It's pretty funny.
no,
Okay,
it's true.
so I want to touch a little bit on childhood.
Mhm.
So, other than crayons, what was your first medium that you did other than that?
Actually, I my this is a good story. This is perfect because my mom just posted this on Facebook, and so I've got a picture of it. I could even send it
Oh,
to you.
nice, cool, cool.
Yeah,
Please do.
yeah, it's so when I was like 5, I would get up in the morning. My dad and mom had this is when we lived in Colorado, and they had a big table in the basement, and it was a finished basement, but it was like, my brother and I had our Atari down there, and we had the record player and all this stuff. And we had a big table and a big bucket of markers and crayons and all that stuff. And there was, I remember there were some felt tip pens in there too that my dad would bring home from the office. And he used to bring home this blue office stationery. It was like powder blue, and it said like American Coleman on the top of it. And it was just scrap paper to him. And I grabbed a piece of that one morning and a felt tip pen, and I drew these clouds with happy faces and party hats, and I had a floating table and I put birthday presents on it. And there was a specific toy store up the street from us called, I think it was called Toys by Roy, and they had a specific kind of wrapping paper design. It was kind of geometric. And at all the birthday parties, you knew if you got, wrapping paper from Toys by Roy, you were getting a really cool gift. And so I put that detail on all the packages. And it was just a
Nice.
felt tip pen drawing. And I called it Birthday Party for Clouds. And for some reason that took off. My mom, she was head of the children's art show out there in Colorado. And she entered it. It got like first place in one show, and it got like honorable mention in another show, and she still has it hanging in her house like to this day. And so I used anything I could grab. I loved crayons, I loved markers, but I also would grab a pen or pencils, anything. And also during that time, my mom's watercolors were out, so sometimes I would be able to kind of play around with those too, but they were kind of the professional. But then I got like my own set of praying watercolors, and I still use those to this day, the little 8 color set things. So yeah, I think as a kid I used that. But then I also would go outside a lot and pick up rocks. And my friend down the street, Emily Jacobson, she was my best friend back then. We would one time we painted rocks, and boy were we entrepreneurs. We set up a painted rocks and ice water for sale at the end of the driveway one time, and we
Nice.
actually made money. We sold ice water. But yeah, we had painted rocks, and of course we painted them with watercolors, so they probably didn't last more than like 4 days. But
Yeah.
so even back then I guess we were trying to sell our art.
When I was a kid, my Aunt Mary, who lived in Chicago, was a Catholic nun, and
Mhm.
she didn't have money.
No.
And I don't even know how she would manage to get money, but what money she did have, she would often, for my birthday and for Christmas, she always would send me like really nice, like calligraphy sets or
Oh yeah.
Winsor and Newton paints, and
Hmm.
really nice canvas, and really just paints, anything artistic, markers, pencils, everything.
Yeah.
And so my eh, own creativity was kind of nurtured by her, probably more so than my parents. And obviously it sounds like your mom probably filled this role, but how was your creativity nurtured when you were little?
Oh, and such a good point and question. I think because, like I said, my parents were pretty. They were creative. My dad did a lot of woodworking. He had like a little studio also in the basement. It was like they called it his workshop. Every dad seemed to have a workshop, and so he had wood carvings that he was doing, and they weren't anything serious. It was just kind of the relief, stuff. And by that point, my brother was playing guitar. and my mom was painting. So it was kind of natural. I don't think it wasn't anything like fantasy like, it wasn't like some romantic like thought, like, oh, I grew up in this amazing environment that was full of art. It was just sort of like a normal um, kind of thing, but we just kind of had a little more on the art side in our family. And we had the mountains nearby. I mean, living in Colorado was like I only had 6 years there as a kid, but it was like, I still claim it. I still claim that, even though I've been in Kansas City like way longer. I think being outside and the no humidity and playing outside in the snow and then coming in, I think it was just naturally nurtured. And I'm sorry, it's trash day. So if there's a lot of background noise, I've got GFL out there picking
Yeah.
things up. So I think it was just kind of it wasn't pushed, but it wasn't like, it was just, and I mean, I wouldn't even call it pushing. My mom being an artist, she had a lot of friends out there because she was in the art guild, I think is what they called it. And so she had some connections. And again, it wasn't like forced on me or anything like that. But she had like a woman who had a studio in downtown Denver or downtown Littleton. And she took us there one day, me and my brother. And like we did a little bit of printmaking. And, being like 5 years old and doing a copper plate etching. I didn't know what I was doing. I just know that I still have it. I drew a big whale with like a spout and some water droplets. And then we printed that, I didn't know what that was, but now, I mean, I would probably pay $250 to go take a workshop for 2 days or something to learn something like that, and
Right.
back then it was just something my mom did for us. It was kind of cool. So,
Well,
yeah.
that's awesome.
Mhm.
That's awesome. One of the things that I get, wrapped up on, like Facebook and stuff is, I'm always presented with like these wild, crazy artists. And I wish I knew the group that, always put these in my feed. But I'll see like a technique that's just so different than anything I probably would have thought of, that I just
Mhm.
get, just like uber fascinated. And a lot of times I'll be like, well, I'd like to try that.
Mhm.
Even though it's not something that would be anywhere in my core strengths of, skill set.
Yeah.
And the one that comes to mind was there was a guy, and, he's got basically a big white, it looks like, I don't think it's canvas. I think but it's probably, it could have been a canvas, but he just used a industrial stapler, and using that as the line, and then it's a large format, so it's probably 10 foot by 10 foot, uh,
Uh-huh.
you know, piece that he's doing, and he's using this stapler, and from the distance you can't tell what he's doing, and then afterwards when they show the finished piece, it's this lion, portrait of a lion with the lion's mane, and it just looks like a drawing that was be done with little short, little marks,
Uh-huh.
but it's staples, and it just like that is just so crazy. I would have never in a million years thought of that. Is
Yeah.
there anything that you've seen, like technique or a medium, perhaps, like, I'm fascinated by the paint
Mhm.
pour things, only because,
Oh, yeah.
some of the crazy colors on it's so psychedelic. I'd be like, I'd use that for a background. I don't know if I would use it as a finished piece, but I would use
Right.
as a component of something else.
Mhm.
Is there anything like that you've seen that goes, wow, I'd really like to try that sometime?
Oh, that is like a really good out there question. I see stuff all the time too that fascinates me, and I don't know how people do it. And
Right.
like, I mean, I'm trying to think of something that has done that recently where I just don't get it. Well, I don't love AI, but I am sort of fascinated by how it works, and I kind of want to figure out the background, like not the AI that steals people's art and makes, new comic book characters out of it or something so that person can sell it. I mean, there's a lot of things about AI that just drives me nuts. But this one artist, and I don't know his name, he makes the most bizarre, videos of like people melting at a Taco Bell with sauce and taco shells that are breaking, and it's so fluid and so realistic. And so there was one that was like at a Burger King or something like that, where the ketchup was going everywhere, and it just looks so real. Or the ones that people are getting into beds made of jelly or like souffle or water, and they just it's fascinating to me. And I think it's because I don't understand it, and I kind of like that, because there's not a lot that fascinates me anymore. And I hate that it's AI right now that's doing that, but I kind of burned out on a lot of things. I just go, yeah, okay, seen it, been there, done that. And so when I find something that, like, like you said with the lion, I get very excited about that. So I would have to think about other things that are fascinating art wise. I do spend too much time on Instagram late at night when I can't sleep.
Yeah.
But I don't look at bad. I try not to look at the bad stuff. Then I try to find good stuff like that, or dogs talking. But I don't know. I don't know if that really answers your question. I might have to think more on that one, though. I may actually have to think about that, because I know there's stuff out there that like tattoo artists. I am fascinated by that.
Me too.
Yeah, that's probably okay. Now I've thought of one. You can edit all that other AI stuff out. No, I'm kidding. The tattooing to me is funny, because people have said for years, "Oh, you should be a tattoo artist, Melissa. You're so good." And I appreciate that comment, like, to the highest level, because it's like, that's huge, because tattoo is permanent on your body. I don't even have any, because I can't decide what I want on me forever. I'll probably wait till I'm about 85 and then get one. But I am fascinated by how they can do that, and how they can do it so precisely. And I know nothing about it. I mean, I have one pencil. It's a .03 that I draw with all the time, and it's the closest thing to a needle that I can draw with. Right. And I kind of, when I'm using it, I'm thinking, is this what it's like when people draw with their tattoo pens or whatever? But that would probably be my main answer at this point, is that those people that can do that kind of thing, and I don't know how they do it, and they do it really well. Some people can really just rock the tattoo art, and I don't know how it works. So that's my answer.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I would love to have, I'm not anti tattoo at all. I would love to have, a few. Some of it's my trust of trying to find the right artist, that can recreate, because I would want to design my own, that'd be the whole thing. So I'd have to see you freehand what I'm doing to kind of match that. And I actually thought about buying a gun and doing it, because I watched a couple of videos on it, and how to do shading and stuff like that. And it's pretty damn fascinating. It's but it's all technique.
Yeah.
You have to know the technique. And I was really, the thing that kept me from buying the gun was, I was like, if I do this, you realize you're gonna have to experiment with yourself first before you do anything. And then what if you do something stupid on yourself? Then you're stuck with this thing. Then you gotta hire somebody just to fix it.
I knew somebody that would allow his friends to do that, and he had some pretty stupid tattoos.
Yeah.
I won't name names, but it was kind of like, really? You were very trusting. And I mean, they weren't terrible, but it was like,
is that a cat or a deer?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or a hot dog. I mean, I don't know. But yes. Yeah. But that's funny.
I want to touch a little bit on back on the AI thing, just because I had this as a note a little further down in the episode. But now you brought it up, so I want to mention it. I use it a lot as a tool. And, I know a lot of people, are very, could be very pro AI, and a lot of people are, very anti AI, but I use it a lot for workflow to speed up a process that would take me, sometimes, especially with music videos, would take me, oh God, tens of thousands of dollars and, in time and effort. But the idea, especially with a music video, is I have an idea in my head, and I want to communicate that or get that across some way.
Yeah.
And when I first discovered a lot of these tools, because I don't use just one, I got a handful of things that I kind of go to. And, AI in itself will never produce what I have in my head on its own. Right. It always requires a lot of Photoshop work, a lot of, Premiere work. There's always something I have to do to kind of get it massaged to more along the lines of what I'm doing. But I'm not anti that. I just view it kind of like as another tool set
Hmm.
that is now available for me to use for the creation of what it's in my head.
Yeah.
It's not the creator, and I don't want it to be the creator. I want it to be the tool that I use in the creation.
Yeah.
And so I was curious, is that kind of how you view it? Or
Hmm.
it sounds like you're not, you're fascinated by it, so you're not anti AI, but it doesn't sound
Yeah.
like it's something you've really jumped into as well.
Yeah, it's that is I love talking about this just recently. At first when it came out, I was like, "Oh my gosh, all my art that's on the internet is going to get used without my permission." And I mean, I think that's still true. But
Hmm.
I recently talked to a group of students just a month ago at Tony Mission North, and I knew it was going to come up. So I started thinking more about it, what I would say. And of course it did. And I remembered that, and I shared this story with them. When I was in high school, 91 to 92, I think is when I was a junior, or maybe was a senior. That's when Photoshop came out. And
Right.
I had been taking traditional photography every semester I could. I think you could only take it once, one semester, but I took it freshman, sophomore, junior, and I was in it in my senior year. And my photography teacher, who I'm still friends with, Luann Hine, she's awesome. I remember we had a discussion about Photoshop because we got Macs in our art room. We had just recently gotten Macintosh computers in there. Like there had been computers in the school, but like we got Photoshop. And she was nervous and she said, this is going to knock out traditional photography if we're not careful, but we need to use it we could probably use it as a tool. I remember her talking about it. And I wasn't for it back then. I was like, ooh, Photoshop, no, got to be traditional, and now I can't live without it. I use it every day. And it's the same with AI. I think that's going to happen. I think the same thing's happening right now is all of us old schoolers are like, oh my God, no. And then it's going to become a tool. And I love that there are people using it as a tool, and that's how it should be used. Just like Photoshop is a tool. It doesn't replace photographers. Well, in some ways it kind of did, but it was scary at the time because even like the toolbar on the side of your screen has burning and dodging, and that you can do in Photoshop. And that was like, I was doing the actual burning and dodging with a piece of paper and a wire and the lights, in the dark room. And so I thought, oh my gosh, this is like really crazy stuff. But again, now I'm just seeing AI as the same thing. I do fear it's going to get used in a much worse way than it should be. It already has been. Photoshop was scary because people were like, "Oh, we're gonna get Photoshop." Bad things are gonna happen, and they have. There's been a lot of photoshopped people's heads on things that they shouldn't be on, and politicians, and a whole thing. You could go down a rabbit hole. That's gonna
Right.
happen with AI, and it's just.
Yeah.
But I think we just have to manage it and watch out for it early on, and figure. I don't really know that we can't avoid it. And I like the idea of using it as a tool. I got in Chat GPT just recently for the very first time ever. I really didn't know what it was. I didn't even I had to ask somebody, how do you get in Chat GPT? This was like 2 years ago. They're like, well, you just go to Chat GPT and I was like, but what is it? It was totally, and that was partly me just avoiding it for a long time. But I got in there. And the first thing I was sitting in my studio and I was looking at the hummingbirds right outside my window. And I typed in hummingbird. And then I thought, what should I put with that? And I don't know where it came from, but I just put hummingbird superhero, and I let it do its thing. And it gave me all this background on a hummingbird superhero and all this stuff that I didn't ask for. And and it was like a human talking to me. And then it's asked the question at the end, would you like me to illustrate this for you? And I was like,
Right.
oh, okay, here we are. This is it. My biggest fear. This is it. I'm an illustrator. It's asking to illustrate it for me. So I hesitantly hit yes. And it gave me the most gorgeous drawing of a superhero. But the thing was, I opened up another browser window that wasn't in there, and I typed in hummingbird superhero over there on Google, and it basically showed me like all the superhero poses that it stole from. It showed me all the artwork that was out there that it stole the colors from. So that was like my first thing that scared me away. But then I had I had to write a cover letter, but like a letter to a client just like a month ago. And that was probably 2 months ago. And so I went back to it and I wrote this letter and I had a lot of fun with it. It was like I talked to this chat GPT fake thing as if it were my pal, and it corrected everything that I'd already written the letter, but it said, how about this? How about that? And I kind of realized, okay, if you use it right and you use it as a tool, it's very helpful. So I think it's going to be like anything else. I think everybody's going to have to just kind of come around and deal with it.
Right.
And that's, that's kind of how we have to deal with everything in the world right now. Just have to deal with it.
I found a pretty neat use for it recently, which was I took old resumes and my latest resume, and I put all of these, into one basically Word document, and then I copied and pasted all of it into Chat GPT, and I asked it to, to refine it, chronologically, and then try to get all the skills, list all the skills out, in groups that are related. And then I would give it, using that because you can go back and reference old, chats that you've done.
Yeah.
I take a job posting, and I would ask it to refine my resume.
Yes.
To only show the relevant experience and relevant skills necessary for this job application.
Yeah.
And I found that pretty fascinating. Something that I could do by hand, but it would take me, I don't even know how long it would take me to do that. By myself. It's just kind of crazy.
Yes, and that's what you got to do these days. I've tried to go back to full time last few years, just here and there, and and I have done the job hunt thing, and it's so different.
Yeah,
And everybody says you got to do that. You got to play the AI game. And I don't think any human, out of all the applications I've sent and resumes and things, I don't think any human has looked at it. I think it's all AI. And I've been told you got to play this game where you type in all those keywords and you got to, and it's that way. And I think I have to myself just kind of like, it freaks me out because I'm like, oh no, that's where, back in my day when I got like 15 years ago, all the jobs that I've applied for, I would have at least had an interview with, because my skills are, and I have 25 years of experience.
Right. Yeah.
And I can't get in now. And it's like, I can't even get an interview. I can't even get anything. And it's all automated. And I kind of have had to have that come to Jesus talk with myself, okay, you're going to have to accept this, because you can't just walk in with your portfolio and, it's not about how, like, you can't have a personal experience yet, like initially, like you could before. I could drop off a resume, I could drop off my book and my portfolio book. I could take in a thank you note, or I could meet people along the way of, I could literally meet people along the way of the process of getting an interview. Now you just can't. And so, you've got to do all those steps. But I did have one guy that I'm friends with, my friend Chance. He's another business owner. He's got a full-time gig right now, but we were talking about AI recently, and we were having this exact same conversation, and he had a really great thought too. He said, well, what if you take like a folder of all of your own artwork, and you have AI only pull from that, and then you can create things, going forward from that. Then you're not like stealing anyone's artwork and all that. And I thought that's a good thing to work on. I could have a whole bank of my own styles and artwork and stuff, and see what it does. So I haven't done that yet, but I do think that's a really cool way to use it and not be dipping into other people's like banks. So Yeah.
That's actually a pretty cool one to do too, by the way.
Yeah.
I've uploaded, like I think Midjourney was when I first started
Mhm.
doing that with the uploading an image and then having it animated,
Mhm.
was just crazy. Just
Ooh.
watching how it would interpret the motion and, which is really freaky. If you ever get a chance to, you should watch the River video,
Mhm.
which features 2015 Heather Thornton and me. And
Oh.
just it's so freaky how her and I have talked at length about how did it get your mannerisms down
Yeah.
without knowing I mean, because it's like when I watched, I was like, that's exactly how Heather would do that. It was insane. So I don't quite understand all that. But anyway,
Mhm. Yeah, it's
anyway.
a rabbit hole.
Yeah, yeah, truly. Okay, so do you have a favorite all-time favorite artist that you kind of
Yeah, I love who always comes first in my head. There's a few, but my favorite has always been William Wegman. I think he's been my kind of my standby. It's kind of like when people say, who are your favorite bands, and I'm like REM, U2. They're just like my standards. They're just
right, yeah.
they kind of like I grew up with them. I still love them. They're still there. They're all still intact. William Wegman is still around, and I love his stuff. I know everyone knows him for his Weimaraner
Yeah.
dogs, but and I love those too, and that's how I found out who he was. But then I started learning more about him, and he had a lot more. I don't know if you're familiar with his other stuff, but
Mm-mm.
did a lot of like he would hold the camera, what do you call it, the clicker, like on a wire, so he would walk away from the camera, but he could take the photos from far away, and he would do a lot of I guess documentary stuff, and it was always simple, funny, pun type things. And like he had himself standing like this in like in front of a tree in the forest, and he had like a square head that he had put on his head, and he titled it Basic Shapes in Nature. I mean, just stupid stuff like that. He had another photo of his fingers that he had drawn little black circles on each knuckle, and he was holding a piece of sliced peppercorn salami. I don't know why, but I just thought that's like so funny and so simple. And he was at the museum in St. Joseph, and I may get the name wrong. I think it was Albrecht or Albrecht. It's a museum in St. Joseph, Missouri. And he was there and he was signing books. And so I took my book for him to sign, and I opened it to my favorite page. And it was three images, black and white, of just him from like the neck down, just standing with, he had a glass of milk. And in the next frame, the milk is falling, like actually falling, and he had let go of it. And in the third frame, it's just sitting intact on the floor. I don't know why, but every time I see that, I just like laugh. So I opened it to that page and I said, "Can you sign this?" And he drew me 3 glasses of milk and signed it. And I was like,
Oh,
yes. And I think that was like 40 seconds of my life. And 40 seconds of his life. But those are our collective 80 seconds together. So, but yeah, that's kind of my favorite guy. He's just because he's lighthearted
right.
and he's not dark and cryptic, but he's also deep and thoughtful, and he's a dog guy. And he's still around, which is cool too. I always kind of like the modern artists because I
Right.
feel like being in the same time frame with them is fun. I love the old stuff too, but there's just something about him I've always loved. So that's my favorite.
Do you approach stuff, speaking of Photoshop, before, do you have a different approach for something that's hand drawn is versus doing something that's digitally produced?
Um, like I mean, yeah, I don't love digital. I'm starting to try and embrace that too. Like the iPad program Procreate, you can sketch and do all those things, but I love going into my sketchbook and using real paper, real pencils. It's kind of where I start with everything. I do a sketch. I don't do millions of sketches. I know that my teachers would hate that, but and my old students would hate it because I tell them you have to do millions of sketches. But I try and kind of nail it in the first, with a sketch, and then with digital, if something does require digital, I I use Illustrator, Photoshop, things like that, and try and combine the two. And so
Right.
I like having both in there if I can. I still like having that hand drawn feel in my personal style. I mean, if the client doesn't want it, I won't force it. But
Right.
if it's my personal thing and I have the art direction on it, I'm probably gonna stick some hand drawn things in there, like pencils and paints and things, just to keep it real.
Nice. So let's take a quick break, real quick here, and then when we get back, I'd like to dive into showing everybody some of your work.
Okay, sounds good.
How the Light Gets In, the new book by author, artist, poet, and musician Angela Carroll Brown. How the Light Gets In offers a practical guide of 10 principles to aid in taking care of our spirits, keeping sanity, serenity, and joy in our daily toolbox, living with greater authenticity, and staving off the harmful effects of the fight or flight mechanism of a sympathetic nervous system in hyperdrive. How the Light Gets In is available in book and audiobook format. Visit angelacarrollbrown.com for more information or to get your copy today.
I'm going to start with let's take a look at this one to start with.
Ooh, yay! Zummies.
Yeah, and so this was a commission piece,
Mhm.
and can you just give a little bit of and what I'm curious about is the approach for this piece. Is it do you start with a photograph? Is it something that where they told you like I kind of would like them in a tree? How much is the customer, how much input do they give, and do you more or less are you working more with what they're asking for from it, or do you take more liberties in that and say, I'm going to come up with something that is within your own mind and then present it to them?
Yeah, this so with a commission, I always have to keep in mind that they're paying for this and they're going to have it in their home and they have to love it, or else I will hate myself forever. So
Right. Yeah.
so Josh, my friend Josh, and his wife Flannery, she was turning 50 a couple of weeks ago actually. And so a couple months ago, he texted and said, I want to give her one of your drawings and I want to do it of their cat Zam. I think it's Zammies. And so the way it worked was he said, do whatever you want. And so I said, okay. And then he came back before I even got to the sketches and said, oh wait, I have this great idea. And I was like, cool, tell me what it is. And it was putting their Flannery apparently always, and this was a surprise for her. So we had to do all this, for a month. We had to keep it all quiet. But apparently she always calls this kitty of hers the Panther, because she's always kind of lounging around like that. And so he said, could you put her in like a panther pose? And I was like, I don't know. Do you have any samples? So yes, he sent me a couple of photographs of a panther in a tree. And that's basically the pose and the tree shape that I started with was the photograph that he sent me. And I ended up it was kind of actually, I should say it was the first time I really used Procreate with the digital pencil. And I had the photograph and then I used I think I sketched on top of it. But usually I'll just use like Photoshop and I'll kind of cut and paste things in there. So I cut out the cat's face and put it on the panther's face. And then I cut out some of the fur to get where it would go. So I kind of had to start, with what his idea was. And then I said, I'd love to add more to this that's like botanical. Would you want anything in there? Do they have any favorite plants? And of course, he jokingly said, well, Zammy's loves catnip. And I said, well, I can draw catnip. And then he said, well, and then Flannery loves lavender. And I said, done. Let's just put a little catnip and a little lavender in there. I can draw both of those. And then I added the vine as well. But mostly it was him kind of coming up with the idea. I love it when clients have ideas because it sort
Right.
of takes the pressure off me in a couple ways. It makes, because you can start anywhere. When someone says do whatever you want, I mean, that's such a loaded,
Mhm.
oh my God. I mean, they don't understand for an artist that's like basically paralyzing sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know what you want. You're going to hate whatever I pick. Just tell me something. And so it's great when they have an idea already. And I work better that way with people.
Right.
I am not one of those artists that's just like always free thinking and always creating and just sitting in my studio, like just la la land. I am like, I need a deadline, I need an idea, I need a concept, and I need a paycheck. I mean, those are kind of like the business side of me. So when he came to me with all of that, he even had a price in mind and everything. And it was, we kind of negotiated on that, and it was great. So yeah, I started with photo, and then I added some of my own elements to give it my spin. And we kind of compromise, and we didn't even have to compromise. He was willing. He wanted me to do whatever I wanted. But he was good about giving me some ideas too. So I love it when that works out.
My friend Steve was the first one I had ever heard the quote from that creativity loves constraint.
Oh
And,
yeah. That's
when
good.
when he first told me that, I was like, I'm not sure if I agree with that. Then the more I kind of thought about it, and then, obviously I've experienced it too. It's true. It's true. If
Mhm.
you can put some constraints on things, that are boundaries and limitations, or, direction, it does, for me, it does provide a little bit more ease to navigate through that than it would be if I have an open palette and
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
whatever. Because I could, I'll fight with myself for an hour over
Yes.
even up, where to
Yeah.
even begin on it, which is
It's
just,
hard. I think it's kind of like
tough.
the Adderall or is it Adderall that people take for ADD that focuses them in? Like, I
I
don't take
think
any medicine,
so.
but
I think so.
it's like the medicine that people take when their mind is just so, or it's a shot of vodka for your mind. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
Yeah. The second one I want to take a look at is this one, the
Oh
Wild Words book.
yeah. Yes. Yes.
So again, this is kind of a question about how you engage with the client on this.
Mhm.
Did they have you kind of in mind, what they wanted from the illustrations and the book design, or was it collaborative, or did you come with ideas, and kind of how did you get to kind of the point where you knew, okay, this is everything I got to do for this?
Oh, this was the best. This was such another great project that I loved. My friend Leslie Van Holten, so she was my roommate in college at KU, but we also knew each other when we worked at Streetside. So we met when I was in high school, and we are still dear friends to this day. And as one of the best things about staying in a career, I feel my career, is as we all get older, I'm starting to work with old friends. Like it's so cool. So she was working at Humanities Kansas, and she was the director of this book. And they had done one prior to this the year before, and they had an artist from Kansas City do. They had kind of established the layout of the book and the size, and then by the time they got to this one, the second, so they basically said, we want to do another book, but it's going to be completely different. It's going to be, the first one was about birds, and she was like, I wish we would have had you on that, but we wanted to get a variety of people. And so they went with somebody else the year before, but this time they wanted to do the flower, the Kansas native plants and things. So basically when she came to me, it was open. She said, we need 11 illustrations of 11 different Kansas plants. And we have this size of the book, but you can do whatever you want other than that. It's like, okay. Oh, and the poems, of course, have to go in there. Duh. And so it was basically like her coming to me with those good constraints, okay, I got to stay within this size, this format, and we have all the poems ready, and we have all the flowers picked out and all the botanicals picked out, but you can do them in whatever style you want, although we love your realistic style. And you can do them and you are going to be the designer of this book too, so you can do the layout. And it was a dream job because I got to do the illustrations knowing what the layout was going to be, and I got to do the layouts knowing what the illustrations were going to be, all simultaneously. So I was able to lay these things out as I created the book. That's not something that happens all the time, especially with illustration. But being both the designer and the illustrator, I was able to do that easily. And so that was one of those times when she was so great to work with. we're old friends, now we're grown-ups and we're doing our jobs, and everything's flowed really well together. So the process on that was, again, we had a little bit of direction, but mostly she gave me pretty much whatever I want to do. And she knew my style too, but
Right.
I had only done a couple of these, the style before. And so I did go to her and say, what if I did the flowers like this? And then I put these backgrounds in like this. And she was like, yeah, that looks great. So I still had to run it by her. And there
Right.
are also, people in the office too, that were a part of this book, but yeah, it was very, very smooth. So,
Yeah, Melissa, I got to tell you, I just think these are just so gorgeous. They are
thank you.
just so, so nice. First time I
Thanks.
saw this, I was like, oh, wow, that is really, really good. And you are one of the illustrators and designers that when I see your stuff, I recognize it as you. So
That is so
that
nice to hear. Thank you. Yeah.
so it's really, really nice. And yeah, that's a really nice piece. So
Yeah.
let's take a look at, no, not that one. Let's go to this guy.
Oh yeah. The
So,
Nelson.
or is it this guy? Yeah, let's go this one because this is the
Oh yeah,
this is
better. Yeah.
so tell everybody a little bit about how the Ann Arbor Library piece came about, and then how did that inspire? And this is really our deep dive,
Oh,
um, just because I think that the answer for how did the idea for the Nelson project come about is going to be directly from the Ann Arbor project. But I don't want to put words in your mouth, but kind of how are they related? But two,
mhm.
kind of how did you come up with some of the ideas for some of this, and how did the inception for both kind of begin, I guess?
Yeah, it was the other way around. Actually,
Oh, okay.
The Nelson came first, and
Oh,
then
okay.
Amber came from that. But that's great. I love this is a very unique thing for me to talk about because I never did anything like this before. I was contracting with the Nelson 2021, 22, and 23, a little bit of 24, kind of over the years. And back in, I think it was 2022, I'd been there for a while, and they knew me. They knew I was an illustrator and all that. I was just doing production stuff over there. But there was an art director guy there named Lee Ernst, and he was very cool. I think he worked at Hallmark before the Nelson, and I think he's at the Rabbit Hole now. So he's kind of a creative director guy. But anyway, they were coming up when the Art Deco exhibit was being built, or being in progress. They also have a thing at the end of their exhibits a lot of times at it's called Creative Studio, and it's like kind of the interactive portion of these exhibitions that the Nelson will put on in the main gallery, and the graphic design studio there puts them together. And so Lee was in charge of it, and it's his concept. Actually, he's the one that came to me, and he said, I want to make these boxes and I want them stackable. And he had some prototypes that he had done with like a Sharpie of sort of what he kind of had in mind. And he said, but I need all of them illustrated for real, like not with my Sharpie pen. And so I was hired to be the illustrator of all these. I had like 3 weeks to do it, and it was 42 illustrations, I think it was, and they were all
Wow.
going to be in vector. And I was like, oh, I could do these a lot faster by hand, which probably wasn't even true. But my mind, I was like, oh my God, working on the computer. But anyway, I did it. It was amazing. So he gave me the basic color outline of like the color schemes he wanted. And then he just said, go to town. I'm thinking windows and doors. And he did have a couple specifics, like the Osco building that had the clock, up there.
Yeah.
There was a top of one of the buildings downtown that was more deco, and he wanted some Kansas City stuff. So there were a few specific requests that I did, but mostly it was just me researching like crazy Art Deco. And I also learned that Art Deco and there's another movement right after it, and I can't remember the name. I got them confused, and it was the more flowy stuff, but he wanted it more structured, like more like specifically deco. And so anyway, that's how that came about. We did those. They were a huge hit. and they went. It was great. And I also did the floor. He needed some texture for the grass and these treetops. Like, so I was making like all this stuff. It was great. It was a wonderful. It was just a really. It was hard, and it was hard to but what like get them all different but the same and all working together. But once they came together, it was fun. And then I actually, again, I wanted to get something hand drawn in there, so I drew those little all the gray areas that you see that are kind of ornate.
Yeah.
Those were drawn in pencil graphite, and some of the window frames I also just did them by hand, and then I scanned that into Photoshop and cut out the background and used them in there. And then some of them I cut up and repeated and made other patterns out of and all that. But it really was just like, he had the basic bones of the project, and then I got to decorate it. So it was another dream project. So that's how that one worked out. And then about a year later, another old friend, this is 2 years later, I guess, my friend Eli Nyberger that I went to high school with, he happens to be the executive director of the Ann Arbor, Michigan, Ann Arbor District Library in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And he was like, hey, we saw those Art Deco things, and we have this thing coming up in a few months, and it's called Summer Game, and we do it every year here in Ann Arbor. And it's this really cool thing that they do to get everybody in the city kind of interacting. They have, mostly for the kids when they're out of school, and they can go to different places and different branches of the libraries, and they collect points, and there's QR codes on things, and it's just this kind of big, huge summer-long scavenger hunt. And they have all these different events, and then at the end of the summer, you can cash in your points for prizes and things that are educational and all that. And he said, we are also celebrating our bicentennial, and we want to do the same thing you did for the Nelson, but we want to use our buildings in downtown Michigan or Ann Arbor. And I was like, wow, I've never been there before. I have no idea what those look like. And so he basically just sent me 7 buildings that they wanted to have me create illustrations for on the same type of blocks. And so I had their graphic designer. She went ahead and emailed the printer who had all the templates for the boxes and all that stuff, so that I didn't have to deal with any of the design side. I was just, once again, the illustrator. And we discussed the Nelson thing, and it was like the Nelson Project 2.0, because first of all, I really wanted to hand illustrate the Nelson thing, but they wanted it in vector. Well, Eli said, we would love it hand illustrated. Let's do it hand illustrated. And I was like, yes, this is gonna be so great. So that was like a cool upgrade for me, just personally, that I got to actually dig in with my pens. And I still used a lot of Photoshop and things like that to get things colorized.
Right.
But for the most part, I was hand drawing stuff. And then the second portion was I had kind of hoped that they would make little mini sets of these, the Nelson ones, and they never did. And it was kind of like, oh, that's a bummer. Well, I told Eli about it, and he said, yeah, we would love to do that. So they made little tiny sets that you could buy with your points. And I haven't put one together yet, but it's an interactive thing where you cut them out and then you fold them and they become, stackable things. So, but again, back to the process of that, I basically just took their reference photos of these 7 kind of recognizable buildings, and I had to figure out how to condense them into just a couple of boxes each. The tall one was really easy, the tall clock tower, because that was just literally boxes stacked. But there was one that was it's a train depot that's kind of famous there that everybody knows about. I think there's a restaurant in it, and it's long, and then there's like two different roofs on it and all this stuff. And I had to figure out how to get it down into like 4 boxes and still have it make sense and look like it's representing that building. And so there was a lot of mental gymnastics I had to go through to try and like still maintain the essence of these buildings, that those people are going to know what they are. And, some weirdo from Kansas is drawing their historic buildings that are 200 years old, but they loved it. Apparently it won some kind of paper award, and I got a little interview out of it with their online paper called, I think it's called Pulp. And the people were really interested in knowing the process and all that kind of stuff. So it was, both of those projects were like, that was something I'd never done before. And, I wish I'd come up with the concept. Thank you, Lee. He was, trusted me to come in and do, make it happen. And then Eli, picking up on it and furthering it even further. It was really cool. And I got to work with my old friend. So it's a
Yeah,
good time.
that's usually the best part. Well, it's a really cool project. This is kind of the general question.
Mhm.
How do you deal with roadblocks and anything like obstacles? How do you navigate when something isn't going quite like you expected it to? Um, how do you navigate that?
Um, it's probably different every time. Sometimes it can be solved with just walking away from it,
Yeah.
and coming back to it. If it's a personal project I'm working on, I hate it, which is kind of like 90% of the time. I'm always thinking, this sucks, this sucks. But then I walk away from it. Like, the cat, I was looking at it and I'm like, oh, this is looking so bad. I went to bed. I woke up the next day. I looked at it. I was like, this is awesome. What was my problem last night? So sometimes I can walk away from it and just breathe a little bit. Sometimes, I'm not going to lie, sometimes it takes a glass of wine. I need to just go sit down and like calm down, and just have a glass of wine or a beer and just kind of like, just kind of think about, and not freak out about stuff. If it's a roadblock with like a personal problem with a client or something like that, that I will say it doesn't happen that often. I usually get along with everybody, but not everybody loves me and I don't love everybody. So if there's some kind of issue, I do it a lot differently than I used to. I think I used to be a little more fiery back in the day. Now it's like, hey, let's just figure this out because I just want to do a good job for you, and let's just figure out what's best. And so there's a lot more like calm talking to
Right.
myself and to the client. But that doesn't happen very often. Most people are really good to work with. But the creative block is tough. I can say over like the past 5 or 6 years, I've had more creative block than I care to admit. And it has been a struggle because I feel the pressure of, I should be drawing in my sketchbook. I should be doing this. I'm this many years old. I should have done this by now. And I have to really keep that in check and try not to. I have to consciously do what is that saying? What's the stealer of joy? Comparison is the stealer of joy or something like that. Like you can't compare yourself to others.
Right.
And I think that's just almost impossible this day and age with social media and, just getting older and worrying about everything you do when you're, having to do with life in general. So there's a lot of kind of just calming myself down. and I hang out with my dog a lot. I mean,
Yeah,
honestly, taking my dog for a walk or taking other people's dogs for walks, which is what I do. I have a good balance. I do dog walking a few times a week, and it doesn't pay very much, but it does fill in the gaps. And I don't even care. Some days I don't even care what it pays because it's just the trade-off for like being able to work through a problem in my head while I'm walking, some amazing little dog or something, or my own who's buried behind me still. I think those are the things that are helpful to me. I mean, it just kind of depends on the situation. It depends on the week, but those are probably my big go-tos for fixing things like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
How do you know when how do you know when a piece is done and it's ready?
Oh man, it's never done. It's never done. It's never done. When there's a deadline, like
Yeah.
when it's due. Yeah, that's the best question because it is. My mom's a good example. She would laugh if she knew I was saying this during this interview, but I always get mad at her because she will take apart paintings that she did 20 years ago and noodle on them again. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. I grew up with that painting, and she's like, well, I just felt like it needed this. And I'm like, oh, just call it done. And then I will do that too. I will go back to paintings. And so it's really only done when I'm sick of looking at it. Or I actually recently read a quote that said that, or because it's due and I have
Right.
to get it done. I told Josh and Flannery that cat, I was like, I could have worked on this for another 6 months. I could have, I mean, it's just, I look at it and I go, oh, it's not. But once I've moved on from a section that I hate and I'm thinking, it doesn't look good, it doesn't look good, but it literally within hours, when I look back at it, I go, oh yeah, that's done. That's totally fine. So I have to, another thing you have to keep in check is like, it could last forever. A painting
It just seemed like it was a lot longer than.
could go on forever if I let it. So yeah, it just has to have kind of an ending, and usually like the deadline or just me being just done with it is when it's done.
What role does intuition play as far as your process? Do you just is your overall process? If I, like if you and I were working on a project and I
Mhm.
say, here's what I'm looking for, is the process always the same? You kind of have the same kind of steps you go through, or is it far more job centric that maybe may not do the same approach twice, or is it you have a formula for how you do stuff?
It's usually generally the same. It depends on the project. There's different things, but it usually starts with I need to know, like if it's a client, if it's a project, if it's a personal project, I don't know. It's kind of like whatever I feel like. If it's I'll use the example of a client though. Like if somebody comes to me and they want this, I I have to have an initial outline of kind of what they're feeling, what they want, and then I do like a lot of research. Like if it's like for the cat drawing, or even the art deco, any of those, or the whatever. I have to have the research first. I go and I get on Google Images, and I used to go to the library before Google Images. I would go and get books. I remember back in school, we'd always get a different project every few weeks for an illustration project, and I'd go to the Lawrence Library and I'd get all the books on whatever the illustration was supposed to be about. So I kind of collect as much as I can visually, and take kind of I make my little folder with all the images that I'm going to need to reference. And then I go to the sketchbook and start kind of doing the layout of what needs to be done. And then I get into the final as soon as I can, because I don't really, I used to do a lot more sketching, but over the years you don't need as much of that once you've been doing it a long time. So, and you want to get to that kind of point where you're starting on the final, so you don't live in sketch land forever. And then and then but a lot of times there's still changes that the client will make, so I try and make sure I'm open to that in my head, because if you get married to it too quick and they're like, "No, that's not what I had in mind," you're like, oh god, I gotta and so you just kind of have to, okay, sure, no problem, I can change that. So but I do try to get to that pretty quickly, and then I have to limit. I do set some standards at the beginning with the contract, or at least some sort of something in writing about, when this is going to get done. If it goes over, how much I got to charge after that. And then how many revisions you need to be allowed. And you are able to have more than that, but just understand after 3, we're going to start charging. And so that usually keeps the project into, because I've learned the lesson the hard way. When you don't establish that, they'll make 17 changes and keep on going, and you're like, but you only paid for 3. And so yeah, that's kind of the process. I do all the research first, then the sketchbook if there's a sketch involved. If it's something like a book, I do all the layout in pencil. When I was at the library, I had to do, that's a whole other job, but I was doing 3 rooms of wall panels, and they were, over several months of designing. I actually made a literal mock-up of the rooms with little cutouts and things like that. So sometimes there's actual physical mock-ups of things that I like to make, so that I have that in my possession to refer to. So a lot of note taking and a lot of research up front. So that just makes it better, makes it a lot easier and a better outcome.
Cool. So the last question I have for you is, how
The
does
last question. I'm not done yet. This is fun.
oh, thanks. Um, After a work is completed and it's out there in the world, how does your relationship change with it, or does it?
um, oh, that's very interesting. I hadn't thought of that. I don't know if it depends on how well it's received. So I know I hate to say that, but my little ego will get a little sad if somebody doesn't like it. I will get kind of bummed. But when it's something that is interacting with people, like I don't like to sell my work. I have a really hard time letting go of my work, I should say. But if it's established up front that it's a commission and it's going to go away anyway, I love it even more when it's in its new home. When I have another friend that bought 3 of my bird drawings, and they were commissions from the beginning, and so I knew they were going to be in her home. I wasn't creating them for myself, and I loved them even more once they were on her wall. And I think that's true of all of my projects that get shared with the world, because if they just sit in my house, they don't really do anything. But yeah, once it's completed and it's done, it does make me inspired to create more. And I have a hard time, the process. I do struggle mentally all the time with during imposter syndrome, and oh, this isn't going to turn out well, or I'm not a real artist, there's so much people better than me. And then when it's done and it's presented and people are like, God, it's so great, this is just what I wanted, I want to just do more. I want to keep going and get on to the next project and make it, make more stuff, So yeah, it's always a nice little dot on the exclamation point when you finish something and it's actually being shared and connecting people, and doing what your art is supposed to do.
Cool. So is there any projects that you got coming up, or anything that you want to share that about Melissa Dehner that's coming up in the near future?
So I don't have anything like super exciting. This year was a little slow. 2024 was awesome. That's when I did the blocks, and I did a mural, and I did all this stuff. But this year's been a little slow, so I've been kind of trying to think of like things that I want to work on. And I do have some books in mind that are about my old dog Sage, and also about fresco here. And I recently reconnected with an old friend, and she and I have already come up with one of the series of books about fresco. And I won't reveal the name or anything, but it's basically Fresco's adventures going out and finding things. And so those are I hope to get those out. The one about Sage is long time coming. I've been trying to write a book about her since I had her, and just about a 3-legged dog that can do anything. And I got the song written about her. That's exciting. But yeah, so those books. And then I've got, I have this, in 2023 was Year of the Rabbit, which I'm a rabbit. And
Oh, I love those illustrations. They're so
yes,
good.
I only got through 6 of them. And so I really want to finish those. I've got,
Right.
yeah, I've got, in fact, I'm looking at them right now. There's August and July are sitting on my easel over there, unfinished. And so then I'd have November, December, and September. I don't know. Anyway, so I want to finish those. And then there's another couple of just funny little personal projects. I had an uncle who was a taxidermist, and he wrote a thesis back in, oh my gosh, when he was in college, and he's long gone by now, but he wrote this funny little, like, it's sarcastic, it's sort of weird and odd, and it was hand typed. And I want to actually retype it and do like little illustrations. And the thesis was on how to become a taxidermist, but it was actually like really, he's an old Catholic guy, like from this like old school days. And so there's like, even at the end of it, it says amen. I mean, it's just kind of weird, quirky and odd. And he says things in it like, well, you want it as a beginner taxidermist, you want to start small. I would go with a rodent or a bird or something along those lines. I wouldn't start quite yet with a Homo sapien. I mean, it's just like really weird stuff. So I want to type that up and just get that like at least online published, for my
Right.
family. Anybody else wants a copy. So those are the little personal projects that are online and then or on down the line that I'm working on. And then client wise, I'm looking for more murals to work on. I'd love to do more stuff like I did for the Nelson. And so I'm kind of reaching out to different places right now to see if there's any interest in any of those projects. And I've made some new connections this year that hopefully will turn into some new even production work, that catalog design, anything like that. So I'm just this year has been kind of a little bit of a I don't know year, and
Right.
I like that because I think next year might be more exciting.
I can totally relate to that. Where should people go to if they want to see more of your work and learn more about you?
Oh, thank you. So I have a website. It's honeybeecreative.net, HONEYBE creative.net. And I am on Facebook. I have a Honeybee Creative site there. It's got cobwebs on it because I haven't posted much to it lately. I'm on LinkedIn, Melissa Dehner. And then I have an Instagram account, but it's private, but it's MM Dehner. If I know you, I'll let you in. And then, but the public one isn't public yet. I'm trying to get a Honeybee Instagram account that everybody can just jump on. And
Right.
I just have too many like personal pictures and stuff on the other Instagram. So I haven't posted that as a public one. But eventually I'll get an Instagram for Honeybee out there too. But yeah, the website is basically where you can go. And then you can email me through the website if you have any questions or comments.
Well, I kind of lied to you. I said that I had the last question, but I do have one more, which
That's
is
an encore.
yes,
They're
this
calling
is
for an encore.
this is the additional content, which is the Chihuahua, which I'll put my dogs up on the screen.
Okay.
The not now, but
Right.
yeah. So the Chihuahua, his name is Zippy.
Oh.
And the terrier's name is Charlie. But
Oh.
however, what their names really are is Zippy, aka Zip Zip, aa Doodle, aa aka Mr. Pup, and then
Yeah.
Charlie he's aka Woo Woo, aka Mr. Woo, aa Mr. Pup. I mean,
Oh,
Mr.
yeah.
Fuzz. Excuse me, Mr. Fuzz, Mr. Fuzz, and Mr. Pup. Those are their
I get it.
what nicknames does Fresco have?
Oh, Frescarella. What are you? You are Fressy a lot. Let's go Fresco. I mean, I use that as a hashtag, but I call her that because when I lost Sage and I got Fresco, I could not. I kept calling her Sage. I was like, let's go Fresco. What else is she? She is that's kind of it. She doesn't have a whole lot of I call her Stinker a lot. I call her what do I call you? Stinky. Come here. You want to get on camera? Come here. Oh, there you are. Can you get up? Nope.
Oh,
There she is. There goes my earring.
yeah.
There she is. So this,
Hey there.
yeah, the Fresco. Mostly it's just Fressy in the Fresco. But yeah, we have been she's a goofball. I know. Sage, I had a lot. I had Sagerbella, Stinkerbella, Sagerama, Pup. Well, I call her Pupper Cups for some reason. Pupper Cups and Pupperoni, but that's a treat name. Yeah, I guess I don't know offhand, but as soon as we get off this call, I'm sure there will be like all of them coming out, all the nicknames, because I sing to her. I say we're going to the bank, the bank, the banky, bank. And she knows the bank. Oh yeah. So I mean, I can get her up out of a dead sleep if the word BANK comes up, or park, or any of that stuff. I know. But yeah, that's the there's your answers.
Sweet. Well, Melissa, I can't thank you enough. It was such a delight to share this with you and be able to do this. And I'm obviously I'm a friend and I'm a fan, and I absolutely love your work, and I think it's amazing. And I wish nothing but super wonderful things for you. And
Thank you.
Viewers, if you get a chance to check out Melissa's stuff, and then if you get a chance to commission a piece from her.
Yes, thank you, William. You're so great. Sorry, I cut you off.
2026 would be a great year for a birthday or a holiday to reach out and ask Melissa to do a piece for you.
Pets, no people though. I will say no people, just pets and botanicals. But yes, thank you for having me. I can't thank you enough. This has been such a treat, and I love it. It's really fun to reconnect and chat.
Yes, absolutely. So stick tight, and everybody, I hope you enjoyed the episode, and look forward to doing more here.
Thank you.